Today I want to walk through the 4-man comp that me and my dungeon trifecta group are going to be using in update 50. This is for extra sweaty stuff, trying to get the dungeon trifectas and all the different little achievements. And so I'm not saying this is the absolute best way that you should always build a 4-man team. This is just how we are going to build it. We tend to optimize for just burning straight through mechanics and trying to skip everything by doing so much damage. So that's kind of the theory behind this. Do as much damage as possible, skip every single mechanic you can. So this is not the safe route. This is not necessarily the easy route. This is just how we're going to do it. And I want to talk you through why I think this setup is going to work so well. I'm incredibly excited for pure classes to be back in ESO in update 50. And this will be 4 pure classes in this group. I'm going to go through each class that we got and their role and why we're bringing them, what each one is built around and why they're there. First, we have our main boss setup. This is for like dungeon final bosses that take a little while that you can't Acuity burn through. I'll be running the DK tank with Saxhleel, War Machine, Archdruid, and a couple one-piece health front bar on my sword and shield. War Machine is just back bar. And then my ultimate will be Standard of Might, which gives 300 weapon and spell damage. So what this does is Saxhleel gives Major Force when you ult. War Machine gives Major Slayer when you ult. And the new DK passive, Lead from the Front, gives Major Berserk when you ult. So it's stacking Major Slayer, Major Force, Major Vuln with Archdruid, and Major Berserk, plus the Standard of Might 300 weapon and spell damage. So that creates an incredible burn window at the very beginning of the fight, which should in most dungeons push you through to whatever the next phase is or burn through whatever the next mechanic is. Then we have a Mageblade off healer. This is something we still need to test a little bit more. Our healer Bart can swap from heals to damage, so an off healer really makes sense here. Trying to run Mageblade with funnel health for the main heal, really no other heals for the group. And so there'll be an SPC, which gives Major Courage, which buffs your weapon and spell damage, and then Null Arca or any other damage set. The thing with this setup is that you want to build for damage because that makes your funnel health hit harder, and therefore it gives a bigger heal to your group. If you build for healing, you'll actually do less damage, which will make your heals less strong. So you want to just try to buff funnel health as much as possible, which just means give yourself as much damage as possible. For harder heal checks and harder dungeons, like stuff that you really need a ton of heals for, we would swap this to a full healer, either like a Templar or a Warden. Warden would be good to give Major Brittle, which we're missing from the DK tank, and then put SPC PA or something like that to just give more damage. And then we have a Stam Sorc in Monolith and Mora Scribe or Null Arca. This is just a really great single target damage dealer. With Overload, you can do incredible burst, which is going to line up really great with all the upfront damage of the stuff that the DK is dropping. On the target dummy, I was getting sometimes around a 275, 300k opening burst in the first 15 seconds. So this is going to do huge single target damage. And then finally, the Bash Necro with Corpseburster and Null Arca. This does great single target damage when you're bash weaving on the Goliath, but also just really good cleave. And then the Bashcro will also be wearing Shattering Banner to buff all of our damage dealing with direct damage. That's our main boss setup. For our main trash setups, the DK tank will be running Turning Tide to give Major Vuln in a group area, Powerful Assault, Jewelry, and Back Bar in order to give some weapon and spell damage, Void Bash, Sword and Shield from Vata Shrine, which just helps group all the enemies around in a room together, and then the damage dealers can nuke them down in one spot, and then Spaulder for even more weapon and spell damage. Basically, the idea is run into a room, throw down Wall of Elements in the middle, and Caltrops in the middle for Major Breach, then Void Bash and pull everything in, and the damage dealers will kill everything. So no Sax or War Machine in trash because you're not ulting. This is a really great and really fun, quick setup for tanking dungeon trash. For all the damage dealers, we're not exactly sure which main trials damage set they're going to be using. It's going to be based off of whether or not they're at the crit damage cap. I'm not going to be running LE or anything like that, so they might not be. It'll affect if they choose a set that gives crit damage or not. So that's why it says Zolzon or Null Arca or Moras. We don't know yet. So the Mageblade will still be running SPC to give Major Courage, and then a damage set, either Zolzon, Null Arca, or Moras. They're still going to do tons of damage, but just slotting more AoE skills. And then the Stam Sorc is going to be using Storm Cursed, which does lightning damage in an AoE, and same with Zolzon, Null Arca, or Moras. And then the Bashcro, same exact thing. Just keep Corpseburster, and then Zolzon, Null Arca, or Moras, and cleave everything down. The goal is to stack everything fast, buff the group like crazy, and delete the trash. And then finally, we got our Acuity setups. This is basically for every boss that we can kill in 20 seconds or less. So the bosses with less health, which is most of the non-final bosses. So the Mageblade would just do Acuity SPC, so we make sure we keep that Major Courage going. Stam Sorc would do Acuity Null Arca, drop Monolith. The Bashcro would do Acuity Corpseburster. That's it. That's what we're planning on playing for our 4-man dungeon trifecta group going into update 50. I know I didn't get into the nitty-gritty of each class. I have a build for the Stam Sorc and I have a build for the Necro up on my page already. I'm contemplating doing a DK dungeon tank build. Let me know if you guys are interested in that. Again, thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun. Peace.